Good evening and welcome all of you to this webinar. First of all, I should thank Dr. Binoy Koshi, who is a friend of mine, who had organized this webinar on this day. It is very important for us also because there are a lot of doubts being raised in the public forum that what is Kerala, what is Silver Line, and how does it impact the Keralites. So I thought, yes, this is the right forum. I can interact with the young minds, the budding minds who are supposed to be future engineers of the Kerala. So that is why I willingly came forward to give a presentation to this August Guardians. And Nidya, you can share the PPT. I think all of you will be hearing about Kerala, K-Rail, Silver Line, anti-K-Rail. There are a lot of words, a lot of news are coming in recent past in the media. Next. So, what is K-Rail? Or Kerala Rail Development Corporation Limited. It's a joint venture company between the Ministry of Railways and the Government of Kerala. And similarly, there are companies in other states also. Now, let me say why this type of company has been formed. You all will be noticing that every year when the railway budget comes, people will be asking for new railway lines, new doublings, new stations or new trains. So there is a lot of demand. That means the people of Kerala wanted more railway facilities. Like that, every state feels that they want more infrastructure facilities on railways. And railway with their limited resources, they are not able to provide the additional infrastructure in all the states. So what the central government had decided is that, yes, let us involve the state governments also in the railway infrastructure building process. Basically, the railway is a central subject. Only Government of India or the Ministry of Railways can build the railway infrastructure. They can only operate the railway infrastructure as per the Indian Railway Act. So they have decided, yes, let us involve the state governments, and so that the state governments will be able to identify new railway projects which are required for the state as per the aspirations of the people of that state. So that is how these JV companies came up, and Kerala also joined with the Ministry of Railways, and Kerala Rail Development Corporation has been formed. We call it as K-Rail as a trade name. And this company is having around 51% equity stake by the government of Kerala. That is around 51 crores has been invested by the government of Kerala, and 49% stake by Ministry of Railways. They are invested around 49 crores for making the basic setup. So as and when new projects come, additional funds will be infused to buy both railways as well as the government of Kerala. And we take up many projects. One of that is the Silver Line, or a semi-high-speed rail between Thiruvananthapuram and Kasaragod. The details we will go in the next slides. We also plan for a new BG line from Thalassery to Mysore and another from Nilambur to Nanjangod. In these new projects, the model is like that. Kerala Rail Development Corporation will check up the feasibility, whether a new line is required or not. If it is required, whether it can be done or not. If the project is feasible, then we will do a detailed project report. So it takes about 1 year, 1.5 years, or 2 years to conduct a lot of studies, like geotechnical investigations. Then we have to do the transport traffic survey analysis. We have to do the hydrological studies. We have to do other surveying of the entire section through either LIDAR or some other means. So a lot of studies has to be done, and the detailed project report is prepared. Then we have to make the financial model. Based on the financial model, you have to organize the funding also for that. The state government and the railway ministry will give a small portion of the money. The balance portion you have to get it organized through the financial institution, either banks or international multilateral lending agencies, and then you have to carry out the work and then either operate it or hand it over to Indian Railways for operation. This is a model of the projects being done by Kerala Rail Development Corporation. We also take up some works our own, like some station development in Ernakulam, like Angamali Sabarimala rail project. I think it is going somewhere nearer to your college. Project is sanctioned. We are in discussion with the Ministry of Railways for taking over that project for execution. So that type of work also we do. So I will ask my colleague, Nidhya Joseph is there. She graduated from College of Engineering, Trivandrum in Electrical and Electronics. She left her job in Infosys and she is working with this project. So I request Nidhya to continue the presentation, but I am there along with her. I'll be supporting her wherever it is required, and all your question answer sessions will be answered by me. So the organizers, don't mute me. I'll be there along with her. Nidhya, you can continue.
Thank you, sir. So now we will have an overview of Kerala's upcoming semi-high-speed rail project. So about Kerala, Kerala is one of the most densely populated states in our country with a population of about 3.4 crore and a population density of 890 per square kilometer. Kerala has also recorded a population growth of 4.86%. So what is the travel need in Kerala? As we all know, most of the governmental functioning occurs in the southernmost district of the state, that is the state capital, Thiruvananthapuram, while the commercial activities are concentrated at Ernakulam, Thrissur and Kozhikode. The industrial activities are spread over the full length and width of the state. So it is clear that the travel need from one end of the state to the other end is growing at an unprecedented rate. So Kerala presently has 4 international airports with global connectivity, a well-connected rail network of 1,148 kilometer length with about 200 railway stations, 1 major port at Kochi, an upcoming transshipment hub at Vizhinjam, and 8 national highways with the highest road density of 590 km per 100 square kilometer. So this is the present transportation scenario in Kerala. So now we'll have an analysis of the CO2 emissions from different modes of transport. So transport sector alone contributes to 24% of the carbon dioxide emissions. About 75% of these emissions come from the vehicles on road. Out of the 75%, 45% is from passenger vehicles such as cars, motorcycles, buses and taxis. The remaining 29% is from freight vehicles such as trucks and lorries. Aviation sector contributes 11.6%, shipping 10.6%, and 2.2% is from other sectors. So you can clearly see in the graph that the rail sector is the least polluting transport mode. That is only 1% of CO2 emission when compared to other modes of transport. The average speed by the present road as well as the rail network in Kerala is the lowest in the country. It is about 30 to 40% less than our neighboring states. Also, the existing road and rail network is not suitable for a faster travel due to the presence of sharp curves, steep gradients, and excessive number of level crossings. This in turn causes congestion on roads, as well as capacity utilization of the rail network is actually oversaturated now. Also, there is an increase in pollution level. All these factors have an adverse effect on the productive man hours and also a negative impact on the social and economic growth of our state. So all these factors emphasize the need for a faster, safer and efficient mode of transport. So Government of Kerala has decided to build a semi-high-speed rail corridor named as Silver Line. Silver Line will be a double line connecting Thiruvananthapuram to Kasaragod. That is, the north end of the state is getting connected to the south end, traversing a distance of 529.45 kilometers in less than 4 hours. And Silver Line will be having total 11 stations across the state. The administrative sanction was issued by Government of Kerala recently for proceeding with the initial land acquisition proceedings, and SIA social impact assessments will be done soon. So the sustainable benefits that Silver Line will offer to Kerala: faster mobility and accessibility. With 11 stops across the state, Silver Line will bring cities closer, thereby improving trade and opening up access to social as well as health facilities. Also, two international airports, Cochin and Trivandrum International Airports, are getting connected in just 90 minutes. Silver Line is a safe transport option. Silver Line will be shifting more number of vehicles from roads to the rail option, thereby reducing or decongesting the roads, which in turn reduces the probability of accidents in highways. The accident cost savings is expected to be about 20 million US dollars. The project will also cause induced growth along the corridor, which will promote overall growth of the state. There will be sufficient or ample business opportunities and commercial growth in the primary sectors such as real estate, tourism, and industries. Silver Line is a green transport option. About 2.8 lakh tons of carbon dioxide emissions will be reduced per year. This in turn improves the air quality and also reduces the noise pollution. The employment generation associated with Silver Line. So the project will be leading to 50,000 job opportunities during the construction phase and about 11,000 opportunities once the project is operational. So these are the major benefits which Silver Line will give to our state. Features of Silver Line. So Silver Line is a 529.45 kilometer long line with 11 number of stations, and the trains will be running at an operational speed of 200 kmph. Thiruvananthapuram to Kasaragod is getting connected in 4 hours. Thiruvananthapuram to Ernakulam in 90 minutes and covers 11 out of 14 districts of the state. There will be also RoRo services at selected stations, and the project completion is estimated by 2025. Silver Line will be running on standard gauge with 37 services per day, and the peak headway is 20 minutes. The overall project cost is expected to be about 64,000 crores. So why a semi-high-speed rail and why not a high-speed rail? So this is one of the most common questions. So a high-speed rail is not suitable for a place like Kerala. Kerala, as we all know, Kerala has very sharp curves, steep gradients, uneven terrain, and also excessive number of level crossings. Also the construction cost of a high-speed rail is double, which will in turn result in the increase in fare. Also, the potential of a high-speed rail cannot be fully utilized due to two major reasons. It is average trip length in Kerala is about 200 kilometer, and also the stations are very close by in our state, that is about 50 kilometer distance. So for example, we'll consider the first section, Trivandrum to Kollam section. The stations are about 50 kilometer apart. So if we are using a high-speed train, it takes about 15 to 20 kilometer to accelerate and reach the maximum potential. By the time it will have reached a kilometer distance of about 20-25 kilometer, and it will be running at the maximum speed, and then it will be the time for deceleration. That is, the full potential of the high-speed train cannot be utilized when the stations are close by. Also, we are concentrating on the small distance travelers, like people traveling from Kollam to Chenganur, Kottayam to Ernakulam, or Kozhikode to Kannur. So if we are using a high-speed train, we will not be able to run at the maximum speed for a long distance. So these are the major reasons that why we are choosing a semi-high-speed rail. So initially we have done traffic surveys, and Silver Line stations were identified based on these traffic surveys. The major factors considered were traffic demand, accessibility, and closeness to city centers. These identified stations were then connected by choosing an alignment in such a way that the alignment passes through least populated areas with minimum resettlement. So out of the 530 kilometer, there will be bridges up for about 13 kilometer, 88 kilometers will be through viaducts over paddy fields, about 12 kilometers will be through tunnels, and cut and covers, embankments and cuttings and all will be there. The proposed rolling stock for the Silver Line will be electric multiple unit type. Initially, we will be using a 9-car rolling stock, which can be extended to 12 to 15 cars in future. For the 9-car, the passenger carrying capacity is 675. Aluminium car body will be used with a width of about 3.2 meter. All the coaches will be air conditioned, and the seating arrangement will be 2+3 seating in a standard coach and 2+2 seating in an executive coach. So there will be 3 types of train services. One is the passenger services, which is meant for the transportation of passengers between the main stations. The operational speed will be 200 km per hour. There will be also roll-on and roll-off services, which is meant for the transportation of trucks between these RoRo stations, and the maximum operational speed will be 120 km per hour. So as per the traffic survey conducted, about 400 trucks can be shifted from road to Silver Line. So this will in turn reduce the trucks in roads, which will reduce accidents in national highways and all. So there will be also tourist train services, like introducing Vista Dome coaches, which will boost the tourism sector in our state. So coming to power supply and signaling system, we will be using European Train Control System 2 with long-term evolution signaling system. The traction system will be 2x25 kV AC 50 Hz, and we will have 8 traction substations. Silver Line will be running on renewable power, which will be purchased from Kerala State Electricity Board Limited or other suppliers. Solar panels will be laid along the corridor and also the station buildings. So coming to ticketing, you will be familiar with the ticketing system in Kochi Metro. So we will be having reserved tickets, unreserved tickets. The mediums will be paper, e-tickets, and mobile apps, etc. Ticket issuement will be through online as well as offline methods, and payment methods will be either through cash, debit or credit card, and smart cards. So the fare and ridership projections. Initially, traffic surveys were conducted, and the daily ridership data was collected based on the fare slabs. So this daily ridership and the fare slabs were then plotted against the annual fare revenue. A fare sensitivity analysis was then done, and the maximum fare revenue was observed at a fare slab of 2.75 rupees per kilometer. So the corresponding ridership for this maximum revenue is 79,935. So we expect a ridership of 79,934 by 2025, and the projected riderships are also given here. So the maximum fare revenue point is at 2.75 rupees per kilometer. So how Silver Line is going to augment Indian Railways? Silver Line will be integrating with Indian Railways in 5 districts. The Silver Line project shall contribute to the vision of Indian Railways to enhance not only the passenger capacity, but also its freight capacity. Also, the economic internal rate of return of about 24% shows the immense amount of economic impact that the project will generate over the years. So this is an overview of the project cost distribution. About 27%, that is 13,265 crores of rupees, has been set aside for resettlement and rehabilitation purposes. 47% is for civil structures, 9% for rolling stock, 5% for signaling, another 5% for traction and power supply, and 7% for other miscellaneous and contingency. So totaling all these and including escalation costs till 2025, that is the completion period, and all other taxes, the total project cost comes around 64,000 crores. So the proposed project financing, about 53% will be sourced from bilateral loans from bilateral and multilateral lending agencies. About 28 plus 2, 30% will be from Government of Kerala, 10% will be from Ministry of Railways, and the remaining 7% will be from PIC equities. So how far has the Silver Line approvals reached? We have already received the in-principle sanction from Government of India in December 2019, and the DPR of the project has been approved by Government of Kerala in June 2020, and we are awaiting approval of the Railway Board and Government of India. So that's it about the Silver Line project, which is definitely going to change the way Kerala travels. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Adit sir and Nithya ma'am, for your insightful words. Your words are very much evident of the tremendous experience you have in this field. A lot of information and knowledge has surely been passed on to us during the session. Moving forward to the question and answer session. So I'll be reading out the queries put in the chat one by one for your convenience. There's a question.
Yeah.
What about the environmental issues that's going to be created with this project? I'm not asking about the direct impact, rather than this project will be caused a huge number of increase in queries. Even lobbies, including politicians, are now purchasing hilly areas on a large amount, targeting the starting of this project. So environmental issues. That is a question.
Okay. There was one slide in which we have, Nithya had told about the carbon dioxide emission, in which you have seen that the carbon dioxide emission is the least for the rail transportation system. In fact, that is actually the total carbon dioxide emission now in the world. And okay. Now, if you see a rail transportation system, it takes electrical power. So electrical power, if it is taken from a thermal power station, yes, it is not a green power. It is a coal-based system. So in the case of this project, we are ensuring that 100% the power used is green power. Either it is solar, or it is hydro, or it is wind power. That means there is no carbon dioxide emission when the power is generated for using the electrical train. And electrical train, you know that it is a highly, it is zero emission. That means when a electrical train or when Silver Line is operated, when it is carrying 80,000 people from one end of the Kerala to the other end or across Kerala, it generates almost zero, or it is about less than 1 to 2% carbon dioxide in some different forms, like air conditioners. Like that, there will be a small percentage. But the carbon dioxide generated is the least And we also feel that a lot of people will get shifted from the road to the rail medium, because if you or I try to travel from Trivandrum to Ernakulam or somewhere about 100 to 200 kilometers, we have to spend around 10 rupees per kilometer for the diesel in our own car. Whereas if you travel in this train, you will spend only 2 rupees 75 paise. So naturally, anybody will be willing to get shifted to this medium on direct cost saving. Plus, you save time, your precious time. If you go by road, you will take about 5 hours for a distance of 200 kilometers. And if you go by the Silver Line, you will take only 1.5 hours. You are going to save 3.5 hours of your precious time. And a regular traveler, yes, he will travel. And so we feel that around 12,000 cars which are now plying in the roads of Kerala along the north-south direction will go off the road and people will travel to this. That means it is going to be augmenting your environment. It is reducing the pollution in the road. Similarly, lorries, we have been talking about, she had talked about the RoRo facilities, around 400 to 480 lorries plying in our national highways will be taken off the road, which will improve the environment. That is number one. Number two, when you construct this railway project, it will have a lot of impact on the environment. So you have seen Indian Railways have been constructing from the Thiruvananthapuram to Kasaragod. You have railway line. How much impact it have on the environment? The railway is the least polluting is one side. The requirement of land is the least. If you say about, if I have to have a national highway, we require around 60 meters. And in Kerala, because of our limited land resources, we are doing at 45 meters. Whereas this railway line, a double line, it requires only around 15 to 25 meters. Average around 20 meters width of land only is required. That means you are only using half of a national highway, half of the land required for a national highway for this project. That means the impact of this project on the environment is the least. So that is why the government of India, the Ministry of Environment and Forest had told that the railway projects does not require environmental clearance. How that is the status in India. There is no need of a EIA study to be conducted for doing a railway project. Why? Because the railway is the least environmentally affected project system. So that is why we are permitted to do a railway project without an environmental impact assessment study. But as KRail, as a commitment of the company, we are doing the environment impact assessment study. We have already done one study and the report has been incorporated in the detailed project report. The DPR, it has been incorporated, and now we are doing the next stage of EIA study, that is a full season for 1 year. The air, water quality, we are monitoring it, and we will be doing a detailed study once again. And it will be a continuous process till the project is completed, and even during the entire operation period. Maybe 50 years, 100 years of operation period, the air quality, water quality, everything will be monitored as a part of the environment management plan. So I think the environment will be protected by this transportation system. I think I have answered your query.
Yes, sir. Next question. What is the length of surface level alignment and land requirement?
Exact figure I will not be able to tell, but the land what we are taking, it varies from 15 meters to 25 meters. Wherever the bridges, around 88 kilometers of the track is supposed to be on a viaduct. That means on pillars you will have the track going. It is like a bridge viaduct. In such locations, the viaduct width is only around 12 meters. So we are taking a land of around 15 meters. That is wherever viaduct, 88 kilometers, it is 15 meters. And balance the around 250 kilometers plus the track will be on the ground. In those cases, we are taking about 20 meters. And wherever some hills are there, we have to lower the formation. In such cases, we are going to 25 meters. So the requirement is only 15 to 25 meters. So this is a structure.
Okay, sir. Next question. How do we compare Maglev and this proposed system cost-wise?
Now, tell again, compare.
Maglev and this proposed system.
Maglev. Sorry, I not got.
Maglev, M-A-G-L-E-V.
Magnalev, okay, Magnalev. Magnalev is also a transportation system where, because of magnetic leviation, the train will be floating above the track, and then it is moving at around 300 to 400 kilometers. See, Magnalev systems are now very rarely available. Yes, in China it is there between China airport and the city center. Otherwise, all other systems are very short length. Nowhere in the world a Magnalev system is available for this 500 kilometers. Yes, it is a good system, but since it is not operational or it is not proven for a long distance communication, we have not tried for that experimentation. And one more disadvantage was there, that the RoRo facilities for taking the truck across Magnalev will not work, because you can't take that heavy loads on a Magnalev system because it has to be lifted. So it requires very, very light purchase. So that's what.
Okay, so the next question, it's from Dr. R. Sundarmurthy. What is the EIRR and FIRR?
Financial internal rate of return is around 8.49%. Usually for a normal project, if you take a company, you are planning to start a company, you require an financial internal rate of return of 10%. So in our project, it is little less than 10%, which is usually the cutoff. So that is why in this project, the Ministry of Railways told they will not fully support unless the state government come forward and give the land cost free. So this project, the cost of the land is shared by the government of Kerala because the financial internal rate of return is only 8.49%. But still we consider this 8.49% is very attractive, because we are not planning to take the commercial bank loans, which is now around 8%. We are going for multilateral lending agencies like Japan's JICA, which is offering loan at an interest rate of around 0.2%. So with that interest rate and with the dollar fluctuations of around 3 to 4%, we are able to repay back, and it will be a very good positive returns will be there. And the economic IRR, EIR, is around 24% for this project. Usually for an infrastructure project, 14% is the limit. Any project which is better than 14% is considered as a public project. And in this case, we are getting around 24% because there are a lot of savings. the time saved, the fossil fuel saving, the environment saving. So that all converted, it had become, it is around 24%. Yeah.
Okay, sir. The next question. It's from John P. Due to COVID limitations, how do you plan to open project ongoing by 2025?
See, right now our activity is the planning, preparation of the detailed designs of the various structures, the preparation of the tender documents, preparation of various design basis reports, like that. Lot of pre-investment activities or the pre-tendering activities are there. We have to do a lot of soil investigation. We have done around 200 boreholes. We have done. We have to do another 200 to 300. So that soil investigation is doing. We are doing some. I have already told that advanced environment impact assessment studies are to be done. We have to do some hydrological studies. We like that. Lot of studies are to be. So this process will take about 1.5 years or up to 2 years. And then before awarding the tenders, the major EPC tenders, that is engineering procurement contracts, we should have at least 80% of the land available with us. So that state government had already initiated the land acquisition process. So we expect that in another 1.5 years, the land, around 80% of the land will be acquired. So by that time only we will be able to award the tender. So the physical work at the site will be happening after about 1.5 years. So I think by that time the COVID situation will improve a lot. And the current studies, whatever we are doing, current field investigations, what we are doing, as we are sure that with the existing restrictions, we will be able to progress suitably. And so I don't think COVID will be a major issue. In fact, this project will act as a COVID economic booster, because the government is acquiring land for around 13,000 crores. This 13,000 crores is getting invested back into the Kerala's economy. Wherever the railway track is going, where the land has been acquired, that money goes to the same owners. They will be constructing a new house. Somewhere in the vicinity, they will be either purchasing a new plot or they will be constructing a new house. So there will be a lot of work for the engineers, there will be a lot of work for all the laborers, there will be a lot of the suppliers, various suppliers across the Kerala. So the economy is going to boom, or it is going to revive whatever had been gone down because of the COVID. This package is going to, this project will act as a COVID recovery package. I'm only talking about the land. In addition to that, the civil engineering works, this 70% of that is going to be circulated in this Kerala, especially in this area where the project is coming up. So it is going to improve the economy, and I don't see that the current COVID restrictions will have any impact on the progress of the project. Yeah.
Yes, another question. Is the press, is it designed connecting the existing railway stations or not?
It is planned to connect the existing railway stations at Kochuveli, at Thrissur railway station, at Calicut railway station, at Kannur railway station, and at Kasaragod railway station, where you have to physically change over. Because we have told, now this is a standard gauge. This is going to be a standalone system. Whereas the Indian Railways, we have broad gauge. So people have to change from one medium to the other, because the trains in the standard gauge cannot run in the broad gauge systems. So you have to physically change at in fact, we are contemplating that at Kochuveli station, at Thrissur station, and at Kasaragod station, there should be the proper interchange points. Somebody going to Bangalore or Chennai can go in this silver line, get down at Trichy, and then we in association with the Indian Railways will be able to run some faster trains from Trichy to Bangalore or Chennai. Similarly, somebody going to Bombay can go by silver line up to Kasaragod, and we in association with the Indian Railways can organize some trains from Kasaragod to Bombay, some high-speed trains from Kasaragod to Bombay. So that type of arrangements is being planned now.
Okay, sir. Another question is from Dr. Chandramurthy. How is the travel demand estimated for the future?
Your speech got cut. Can you repeat again?
How is the travel demand estimated for the future?
Yeah, we have conducted a detailed traffic survey. Based on the survey, we have arrived at a figure of around 79,900, which we have given in the presentation. And considering the GDP increase and other thing, there is some formula. Based on that, the future traffic is being projected. I think it comes to around 1.5 lakhs in the year 2054, something like that.
Okay, another question. It's from Tommy Joseph. Can we not route it along the seashore combined with a sea erosion protection wall to avoid the objections from people directly affected by the present routing?
I think majority of you are civil engineers, so you know that you can't do a construction within the CRZ 1 or CRZ 2 zones. You are not permitted. You are not allowed to do it. How can somebody ask that such a question? Maybe he is a non-civil engineer or he is not aware of the CRZ regulations. We are not supposed to go to the sea and construct it. No, it's not allowed. And that is number one. Number two is that the fishermen community, you are not supposed to disturb any project which is affecting the fishermen community. You are not supposed, because they can't be resettled somewhere else. They have to be in their own area because they have to be close. So there are some rules which restrict relocation of the fishermen community. So you can't go to the sea coast and do it. No, it's not allowed.
Okay, sir. Another question. It's from Ajay Tampi, sir. How the invested money will be coming back to the state government since it is handed over to Indian Railways?
Tell again.
How is the invested money coming back to the state government since it is handed over to the Indian Railways?
Okay, so you have seen one slide where we have told 33,700 crores is coming from the multilateral lending agencies like banks like JICA, the ADB, Asian Development Bank, etc., isn't it? So this money, when the operation starts, from the revenue we are supposed to pay back, and you have that money because your financial internal rate of return is 8.49%, whereas your cash outflow interest rate and the inflation is coming to only around 4%. So you are cash positive by around 4%. So you are able to, from the revenue, you are able to pay back. So over a period of around 30 years, the entire loan amount you will be paying back. So, and then the state government, yes, any excess cash which is coming after paying back the lenders, that money will be shared between the railways and the state government, because that is also a debt. It is called subordinate debt. So that cash also go back to the state government and the railways. And none of the state governments are looking for getting back their subordinate debt. Whatever money they are invested for the land acquisition, state government is not looking, because they are getting a 24% returns on the economic IRR that develop the Kerala state develops. More people get job opportunities. More industries will come into the Kerala. So the economic IRR is very high, and the state government is looking for that, not for the returns of whatever money they have invested on the land cost. But based on the cash flow, we found that we will, within a period of 50 years, we will be able to pay back even the subordinate debt. Subordinate debt means the money given by the Government of Kerala and Ministry of Railways. That money can be paid back.
Okay, sir. Thank you. The next question is from John P. Would you recommend to open stage-wise for each sections?
Stage-wise, each section. Yeah, right now we have planned to do the entire work in one stage, in the sense that it's 530 kilometer. If you do only from Trivandrum to Ernakulam or something, it will not have the maximum benefit. And the effort required for doing it at Trivandrum to Ernakulam or Trivandrum to Kasaragod is same, because the loan processing is the same. And we have people are ready, banks are ready, willing, because the project is a very green project. The project is having very good the financial IRR. The project is having very good economic IRR. So the multilateral lending agencies or the bilateral lending agencies are quite positive on giving the loan. So when we are getting the loan, and instead of doing piecemeal, it will be better if we can do the entire project, so that in the next 5 years, if you delay it by stage, it may take about 10 years or 15 years. There will be a cost escalation. In case if I delay the project by 1 year, the cost escalation is around 3,500 crores. 5% escalation is there. So it will be the most economical, viable solution if the entire project can be completed at the earliest than doing at the stages. So that is why we have planned for 5-year period completion.
Okay, sir. Thank you. The next question is by Sandesh Barbol. What type of track technology will be used in this project? Is it Shinkansen track technology?
See, up to 200 or 250 kilometers per hour, it is only the conventional rail technology. That means whatever you have in India trains are running, same technology is being used, except that we are using a standard, which is a European standard. EN standards are followed. With the standard gauge, there are some specification. There are these standards available in worldwide, which can be adopted by anybody. We are using only that technology. That is a European standards are being used, which is an open technology. The specifications are available, and people trained in that is available. Only if you are going for very high speed, above 250, when the aerodynamic effects come into picture, the rail wheel interaction becomes complex, then you have to go to somebody for a technology. That is where you have to look at the Shinkansen, or you have to go to the France, TVG, or you have to go to Chinese and import it. So here we are not going for that technology. We are going only for a conventional rail technology of 200 kmph. So which technology is available, except that rolling stocks you may have to import. But the rail, the bridges, the formations, yes, the technology is available and expertise are available. Some experts, since India, we don't have that rail projects, some of the international experts will be co-opted for the supervision of the work. That's all we are.
Thank you, sir. The next question, it is from Hari Prasad VM. Why the new rail line is a direct gauge instead of broad gauge? If made broad gauge, we'll have sufficient trains like Rajdhani, Shatabdi, which can run through this also. Second one, it's per capita debt in Kerala is already increasing, and in such a financial crunch time, taking loans again will burden us. Comment on that. Yeah, that's the question.
Okay. So you have seen, and in India we have the broad gauge. And broad gauge is limited to some countries only, like some of the Scandinavian countries or in some Russian countries, we have broad gauge, but it is not an internationally accepted railway system. We are running at around 110 or 130 kmph speed, and in some specific sections we have increased the speed to 160. But the specifications or the standards are all Indian standards. The Indian Railway codes are available for the construction and maintenance of these BG standards. So we don't have a standard to run trains above 160. You know that the highest speed is some Gediman Express between Delhi and Agra, running at 160 kmph. All other trains are running at 140 kmph or at 130 kmph because we don't have the standards. Now, if you want to run a train at 200 kmph, you have to do a new design or new specification, and that has to be proven. It takes about another 10 years, 20 years to prove a new specification. It is not a 1 day or 2 day. You can't develop a railway standard and a specification and various how to construct it, how to maintain it. It's not a small job. So that is why Indian Railways is also finding it difficult for the last so many years. Maybe from independence, we are trying to increase the speed, but we are not able to cross 160. So we cannot do it on a broad gauge. If you want to run the speed above 160, you have to go for a proven system, which is only standard gauge available. And in the international area, all the international countries which are more on the high speed or the railway systems, like European countries or the Japanese or the Chinese, majority of these rail systems, that too on high speed from 200 kmph to 350 kmph and other things, it is all standard gauge. So naturally, you have to go to a proven system if you want to run. And we don't want to do, either we or you also don't want to do a trial and error. We are not doing a lab work here. We are going to make a system where people are daily 80,000 people are going to travel. We don't want to take the life of the traveling public very easy. It has to be 100%. Like Shinkansen technology, there should not be any accidents. We can't afford to have even one accident in around 1,000 operations or 10,000 operations. So no accident should be there. That is why we are going for a proven system. And whether the Silver Line train should to go in the broad gauge and other thing, it is technically not possible, but we can debate. We can debate. First of all, if you want to have a train to run at 200 kmph, it is not only the track. Your train coach is also to be fit for 200. So the braking systems, the rolling stock is entirely different. Plus, you put a lot of signaling systems like automatic train operations, automatic train protection systems. There are so many additional features. So the existing trains which are running in Indian Railways don't have all these facilities. If you take a small comparison, the existing railway coaches will be less than 3 crores per coach, whereas the one which we are going to employ in this is going to be around 12 to 15 crores. So there are a lot of additional features to ensure that the safety is maintained. Safety is the highest. So we will not be able to run a Kerala Express in the Silver Line if it is done the broad gauge and if it is possible to run at 200. So it is not possible. Instead of that, what we have to do is that it is running into 200 kmph. India is progressing ahead with the high-speed system. You know that Bombay to Ahmedabad already a high speed is under construction. There are another 7 railway systems like Bombay to Secunderabad or Chennai, Bangalore, Mysore, Coimbatore. Some high-speed systems which will be fit for running at 300 kmph are being planned. So when it come up, it is better that we should connect our standard, because they are all in standard gauge. All the high speed 350 kmph rail systems, Mumbai Ahmedabad is in standard gauge. All the new ones coming has to be in broad gauge, because sorry, has to be in standard gauge because broad gauge cannot take more than 160. So whether we should connect our silver line to the high speed network or we should connect it to the existing railway network of 100 kmh. This is, it's a debatable thing, but technically, if you want to run 200 kmh, it is only standard gauge. There is no compromise on that. Okay.
Okay, so thank you. So the next question is from Jens P. Skaria. Whether any other medium of transport other than truck, like private cars, will be transported between the destinations to boost tourism?
Yeah, there was some discussion. Somebody was talking about transportation of the cars. Yes, in Europe and other thing, transporting the car in the rail is a regular feature. We are also exploring, even though in the initial planning we are not contemplated for transporting the cars, but now we are making a traffic study to find out how many people will be willing, what could be the fares or what could be the revenue model. So this study we are doing it. It will take some time. We are open to that.
Okay, sir, thank you. The next question is from Apurva Karat. What is the maximum and minimum curvature provided for the semi-high-speed rail track based on its alignment?
See, for a speed of 200 kmph, you require an 1850 meters curve. So this is what we have planned. There is nothing less than 1850, except at the approaches of some stations, we have put curves which are around 650 meters also, because when the trains are going to stop in the train within 2 kilometers, the speed will be less than 120 kmph. So at the approach of the stations, we have put curves of 650 meters, but otherwise in the mid sections, there is no curve less than 1850 meters.
Okay, sir. In the next question, it is from Sunil. We all know that the main deficiency of operating trains in Kerala is the saturation of existing lines and the problem associated with the signaling system. Is improvement in signaling a cost-saving measure in achieving our goals?
You see, signaling systems are improving the train operations. There is no doubt on that. Worldwide, signaling systems are used for increasing the capacity and increasing the safety. Yes, for safety, signaling is a must. It is the safety which ensures, it is the signaling which ensures the safe operation of the trains. And if you go for the latest signaling technology like automatic signaling or ETCS level 2, then you will be able to increase the capacity. Like in a normal train operation between two stations, you will send only one train at a time. When the first station goes and reaches the next station, you will send the next train. So that is a normal signaling. Whereas with automatic signaling, you can send one train after the other. With a distance of about 2-3 kilometers, you can send trains one after other. So that is called automatic signaling. So by providing automatic signal, you can run more number of trains. There is no doubt on that. But you are not asked the question, but someone else was asking me that by providing automatic signaling, you can run trains at 200 kmph. That is a wrong notion, because for increasing the speed, you have to make the curves fit for higher speed. So you have to straighten the alignment. You have to improve the formations. You have to improve the track, the bridges. So it is not possible to increase the speed, but you can run more number of trains with automatic signal. Yes.
Okay, sir. So the next question, it is from Mini Matthew. What may be the reasons for using different gauges for the silver line?
Yeah, I have already told this question. I have already answered.
Okay, sir. I'll skip to the other one. It is from Dijo Kapan. Kochi Metro was built with an expense of 5,000 crore, but it is now running at a loss of 85 lakhs per day. But that being said, if KRail spends 64,000 crores, then how much of a financial burden will it impose?
See, whether we wanted a transportation system or not, do you want to travel by national highway, whatever available national highway, which you take 5 hours, you want to waste your precious time, waste 5 hours and go to Ernakulam from Trivandrum? Or you have to look for other ways and means of having a quantum jump of transportation system, because the national highway now, yes, doubling, four lining of national highway is coming, but as per the traffic survey studies conducted, the Kerala's vehicle population is increasing at the rate of 10% per year. In another 5 to 6 years, the newly developed four-line national highway will be choked. Again, with the four-line national highway from Trivandrum to Ernakulam or to north, you can't travel. You can travel with the same speed. You will be wasting your precious time. Or you have to, after 5 years or after 10 years, you have to go for one more national highway, which whether the Kerala have that land available, whether the Kerala have that much land available, or do we have that much resources to construct one more national highway? So we have to look at a transportation medium like a rail transportation medium, where the land requirement is less, where the resource requirement is less, and where the traffic which can be carried is 3 times that of a national highway. So we should look at that type of medium. So I don't, first of all, as per our traffic study, let us not compare with the Kochi Metro. Yes, the economic IRR is very good, the financial IRR is very good. So yes, we should go ahead with that. And the number of passengers will not come down, because I have already told that whether you or me travel by road, we will be spending 10 rupees as of today's 100 rupees. Today's 100 rupees per petrol, will be spending 10 to 12 rupees, whereas you will spend only 2 rupees 75 paise. Do you think that anybody who is going by their own car will spend extra money and go by road? No, everybody, in fact, at the 79,000 what we have calculated, we are sure that it is too less. More number of people will travel. So this is not going to be a financial burden for the state, but it is going to be an economic, it is going to create an economic boom for the state of Kerala.
Okay, sir, thank you. The next question, that is from Sagar Verma. Is the project going to happen in PPP mode? I'll repeat the question, sir.
Yes.
Is the project going to happen in PPP mode?
The JV company itself is a PPP. Usually the Indian Railways does a project by investing its own money for the entire project, that is 63,000 crore. In this case, they have formed a JV company with the government of Kerala. So, and the amount invested by the Railway Ministry is going to be only around 2,150 crore as equity cash and another 975 towards the cost of the land. So it is around 3,100 crore is a investment made by the Railway Ministry. So as far as the central government is concerned, it is this JV company, the project getting done through KRDCL or KRail is a PPP model. Now, if you come to the real terms of PPP, no, we are not doing everything in PPP. Only some components will be PPP. Like the station developments, it will be done on a PPP model where somebody can come, invest, construct the station, maintain the station for a period of 50 to 90 years. Similarly, the RoRo facilities where the trains are being transported on this medium, yes, we are expecting people to come on a PPP model where they will bring the rolling stock, they will do the operations, they will collect the revenue. Similarly, the tourist trains also, we are expecting it to be done on PPP model. So some components of this project will be done on PPP model, but we are not giving everything on a PPP model like some Hyderabad Metro or something. No.
Okay, so the next question, it is from Jins Peace Korea. Is there any internship facilities available for BTech or MTech students to collaborate with the KL Rail project?
Yeah, whoever is interested can come forward. There is no issue. You are welcome.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. The next question, it is from Dr. R. Sundarmurthy. Any transit-oriented development is contemplated on the project?
Yeah, we are planning to do a lot of transit-oriented activities in and around all the stations, and because we contemplate that around 7,000 crores of money has to come from these transit-oriented developments, and some similar to what is done for the Kochi Metro, the roads will be framed for this for the TOD developments, TOD activities of the Silver Line also. Yes, it is being planned as part of the part of this project. Because some of the investment made by the state government, and it has to be recouped, you know? Because when we do so much investment, so much activities are coming in a station, the surrounding area is going to get developed. So that value capturing of that has to happen. Yes, it is part of our major infrastructure projects, and similarly, we are also planning to do it.
Okay, so this is the last question. Since this is a proposed sustainable transportation model, is there any plans to integrate this with other modes of public transportation like roads and existing rail network?
Yeah, I have already told, we are having a common railway stations at Kochuveli or the Kasaragod and Trichur, so that the onward transmission of the people from Trichur or from Kasaragod to the North India, or from Kasaragod or from Kochuveli to South is possible. Plus, we also plan to integrate this with the Kochi Metro, like in Ernakulam. At Kakinada station, this will be integrated. The Kochi Metro's phase 2 and the Silver Line will be coexisting in the same station. You will have both at 2 levels. So it gives an extended connectivity. Similarly, at Calicut, where the light metro is likely to come up, it will be integrated. And we also plan to do some last mile connectivities in either electric buses or the light metros connecting the important railway station with the various cities and like this. So that study we are doing it. We will be going ahead with that. So it is in fact the last mile connectivity, multimodal integration and last mile connectivity is the key of the success of such project, where we should be able to attract the people to shift from the road to this. So we are in line with that thinking.
Okay, sir, thank you. Thank you for all. That marks the end of the interactive session, as the time allocated has concluded. Thank you, sir, for clarifying and clearing all the doubts and queries of the participants. An important detail to the participants is a feedback form is available in the chat right now. I request you to complete the form, as a digital certificate will be made available. Make sure to complete the form without errors so that the certificate will be faultless. And now I invite Mrs. Serene Sarah Simon, Assistant Professor in the Civil Department, to express our gratitude and give the vote of thanks. Over to you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Serene Sarah Simon, Assistant Professor of Civil Department. and I'm honored to present the vote of thanks for today's lecture. As we have come to the end of the session, I would like to thank our guest, Sri V. Ajit Kumar, MD at KRDCL, for enlightening us with his knowledge. It gave deep insights into the dream project of Kerala, which is the semi-high-speed rail connecting Trivandrum and Kasaragod, which takes only 4 hours. Once again, on behalf of everyone, I thank you, sir, for an excellent presentation of your project with the able assistance of Ms. Nidya Joseph. I sincerely extend my gratitude to our principal, Dr. Izzat V. Lakaparambil, for the constant support in fulfilling this event. A special thanks to Dr. Binoy Koshi, who initiated in introducing this personality to us. I also thank our HOD, Dr. Minnie Matthew, and all the faculties of Civil Department for making this event a grand success. Finally, I thank all the participants of this online session for your cooperation. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Now that notes the closure of today's event. I'm unduly pleasured and proud to be able to host this event today. I once again thank Sri V. Ajit Kumar sir and Ms. Nidya Joseph for sparing time with us amid their busy schedule. We sincerely wish and pray for the Silver Line project's development and growth overall in Kerala. Also, I would like to specially mention our Professor Dr. Binoy Koshi for this initiatives. To wrap up, I thank all the dignitaries, AGCs, both faculty, students, public, and all the participants for their support and concern in this evening seminar. Thank you all once again.
Thank you. Thank you.